My family was always poor. It seemed all of our ancestors were incredibly poor. My family knew the challenges of poverty all too well. More often than not, I went to bed feeling hungry after a small meal for dinner. While my friends got all the newest toys and clothes, I was stuck with old stuff that we found at thrift stores and garage sales. Our house was tiny, with only 2 bedrooms. My bedroom was pretty much just a storage space, but we managed to fit a small mattress in there and a closet. There was mold on the walls where we lived, and we never had hot running water. So, yeah, we were quite poor. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos. When I grew up, I never had high expectations of success. I expected to get a dead-end job with long hours and a low pay, and I thought I would just have to accept it. I thought I would always be half broke. I thought I would never live in a nice apartment, or be able to afford good clothes, or go on holidays. But that was far from the case. It all started when I was around 16 years old. I remember walking into my room and looking in my closet for a decent shirt. The one I was wearing had holes in it, and my mom had told me to try to find a new one. I wasn't sure that I would be able to find a new one though. Pretty much all of my shirts had holes in them. I opened my closet and started searching through the small piles of clothes when I noticed an envelope resting at the bottom of the closet. Curious, I picked it up and opened it, and was shocked to find $100 in cash inside. Where had this come from? I looked at the envelope. There was no name, no signature. It was as if a ghost had left it there. It must be my parents, I thought. I was about to go ask them about it, but then I saw the school bus outside and there was no time. I rushed out the door yelling a quick goodbye, and I soon forgot about the $100. For the rest of the day, I didn't give it a second thought. Then, when I got home, I was so exhausted, so I went straight to sleep. The next morning, I went to put some clothes on, and I was surprised to find another envelope. This time, it had $300 inside. I couldn't believe it. Why were my parents leaving money in my closet? And why hadn't they said anything to me? I now had $400. I left the cash in the closet, and at breakfast, I asked my parents about it. "Why did you leave money in my closet?" I asked. My mom looked at me strangely. "What are you talking about?" "There's money in my closet, like $400 in cash." "Don't be silly, Luke. That's not a funny thing to joke about. You know how we feel about money." "I'm not joking. It's true. Enough, Luke," interrupted Dad. "Go on. You'll be late for school." I had no choice but to start getting ready for school. So it wasn't my parents. Then who could it be? For continuous weeks after that, money continued to appear in my closet every morning. A stranger was leaving money in my closet, or a ghost. It was so strange. Why would someone do that? It wasn't my parents, that was for sure. And my friends didn't know where I lived, since I was kind of embarrassed by how small our home was. It couldn't be one of them. Then who was it? I decided I needed to lay some sort of trap. And so before I went to bed one night, I got my phone and positioned it in clear view of my closet. The next morning, sure enough, there was the money. But when I looked at the video, it seems someone had slipped in and stopped the recording on the phone. They must have crawled against the floor to avoid detection. This was starting to get creepy. Who was this stranger? And why did they keep leaving me money? At this point, I had over $1,000 in cash in my closet. It was crazy. I was dying to tell someone. I hadn't told my parents again. I didn't want them to make me stop collecting the money. After all, we needed it. They may have made me put the money back or call the police. And what if the money stopped coming? I couldn't risk it. And so I had to stay quiet and keep it a secret. I became rich. It happened every night. I would come home from school and sometimes there would be $100 and sometimes there would be $1,000. It changed every time, but I wasn't complaining. At this rate, I would be a millionaire by the time I turned 20. Meanwhile, I still hadn't told my parents. I didn't believe it was them. After all, why give me money secretly like that? Why not just hand it to me? And I didn't want to tell them about it. But obviously, they would notice when I spent the money, so I made up a lie. I told them I had gotten a new job at the school and my boss loved giving me tips. So I had to hide my wealth from them. I hid my money in a fake telephone under my bed. You know, you can get those fake items for hiding money, so I felt safe. I also gave my parents money too. I did it gradually at first. I would put $100 bills in their purses and wallets and slip it into their coat pockets too. One time, I even wrote a fake letter to my mom, addressed from her boss, and I pretended to impersonate him and give her a bonus of $1,000. My parents were such hard workers, and so they deserved it. As the years went by, I got more and more anxious. I didn't want the income to stop, but it was coming up to the point where I would have to leave for university. I had always wanted to become a teacher, but if I had this constant income right here in my closet, then why go? Why not just stay here? I had also started getting a little superstitious about it too. I half believed I had a sort of magic closet. And if I left, then the money would stop coming in. I believed that if I moved to my dorm room at college, then the money wouldn't follow me. So I convinced my parents, and I didn't end up going to college. I decided I would stay at home and live with my parents for as long as I needed so I could keep the money. I could tell my parents were kinda disappointed, but I guess they saw how much I was spending and judged that I was still making money through my job, so there was no need to worry. The morning after I quit college, something happened that made my heart stop beating. When I woke up and peered in my closet to see how much cash had been left this time, I was shocked to find no envelope waiting. I searched with panic through my clothes, still finding nothing. Then I searched my whole bedroom, then the whole house. Nothing. I was panicking now. Why had the money stopped? I tried to calm myself and told myself to wait until the next morning. Maybe the stranger had just forgotten. But when the next morning came, there was still no money. And for 7 days in a row, my closet remained empty of any envelope. What was going on? I was getting desperate. My parents had unknowingly come to depend on that money. They didn't know it, but sometimes I went to pay for the rent myself, and they didn't even seem to notice. I decided I had to investigate and find this stranger and see what was really going on. I searched through my closet again, and I actually found a strand of blonde hair that couldn't be mine. Did this belong to the stranger? I brought it to a medical center and had a DNA test done. Once it was complete, the nurse told me it belonged to a person named Matt O'Neill. Afterwards, I immediately started researching his name and discovered he worked at a mega company that produced energy drinks. Who was this Matt O'Neill, and why would he leave me money? I had to find out for myself. And so I told my parents that I was going on a trip with my friends one weekend, when in reality I was actually heading to the headquarters of the place Matt O'Neill worked at. When I arrived at the building, I asked the receptionist if I could see Matt O'Neill. She made a few calls, and before long, Matt O'Neill appeared right before me. He looked shocked to see me. "Can I please talk to you in private?" I asked. "Of course." He led me to a quiet space. "Why did you leave money in my closet?" I blurted out without warning. Matt was taken aback and he seemed uncertain. Then he cleared his throat. "I think it's time you met your sponsor," he said. I was confused by this, but he told me I needed to see the boss of the company. He made a few calls and suddenly we were in the elevator riding up to the top to see the boss. Before long, we were standing at the boss's office door, and when I opened it, I was met with the spitting image of myself, except an older version. The boss sat at the desk writing busily on a notepad, and when I came in, he glanced up with eyes that were the exact same shade as mine. "Ah, you found me," he said. "Who are you? Why do you keep leaving me money?" I asked nervously. The man sighed and put down his pen. "Luke, I am your father." "What?" I cried out. "My name is Arthur, and yes, I am your biological father. Look, I know, you have that dad of yours at home, but he's not your blood relative. I am." "But..." "When you were born, I wasn't ready to be a dad, and so I had to leave you and your mom. I knew I wouldn't be good enough for you, so I left. And look at what I became as a result. I'm a multi-billionaire. I own resorts and companies all across the world. But I still felt guilty about leaving you, so I've had Matt here." Arthur nodded at Matt, who waved his hand nervously. "I had Matt go to your house every night and leave you some cash. You know, just to help out a bit. I've heard about how your mom hasn't been doing so well financially, and, well, I wanted to help. I knew if I gave it directly to your mom, she would refuse. She's a very proud woman. But I thought if I gave it to you, you would be smart about it, and sure enough, I was right." But you stopped the money," I said. "Ah, yes, well, I don't want you to come to depend on it. I want you to be able to support yourself. So when I heard you were quitting college, well, I quit the money too. This was too much for me to process at once. My dad wasn't my real dad. In the end, I just left, as I didn't want anything to do with my biological father. But I didn't offer to give him the money back either. By the looks of his office, it seemed like he had more money than sense. When I got home, I confronted my mom and dad, and they immediately told me the truth. My biological dad had abandoned me, and my dad had come in to help my mom. They had nearly given me up for adoption because they had low-paying jobs and a lot of debt. I was still shocked by all this sudden news, but we hugged it out and made up anyway. Then, out of nowhere, Arthur, my biological dad, turned up at my home. He told me he wanted to take me under his wing, and he wanted me to become his protege, but I refused. I would rather be with my poor family than with a snobby, rich father. And besides, he abandoned me. He couldn't just come into my life as he pleased. As far as I was concerned, he was a stranger. I ended up donating all the money he gave me to an orphanage, as I could easily have ended up there if mom and dad had found it too hard to care for me. No more money appears in my closet, but I got myself a steady job at a company, and they just promoted me to manager, so I guess things are working out well.